My friend used me for years, and the worst part is that I can't even pretend I handled everything wisely or morally. Because this is not a story about a perfect victim or a clever hero. It's a story about how I ignored obvious red flags, made a lot of stupid decisions, and only understood the truth when his lies collapsed at the worst possible moment for him. I'm 26 now, and a few years ago I worked for a very small business that handled network administration and basic tech support. And when I say small, I mean really small, because at one point the entire company was just me, my boss, and his sister who ran an accounting firm. Our biggest contract was with a local charter school, and the work was so extensive that we actually moved our office into a modular building on the school grounds. Eventually, 2 more people joined the company, and one of them was the person this story is really about, a guy everyone called AJ. In a workplace that's small, it's almost impossible not to get close, so we all became friendly. We even met weekly to play Dungeons and Dragons, and AJ and I especially got along well, to the point where we stopped seeing each other as just co-workers and started calling each other friends. Looking back, the warning signs were already there, but I ignored them because AJ had a pattern of unstable behavior that I brushed off as not my business, like the way he behaved around teachers at the school, or how he constantly jumped from one short relationship to another, cycling through women every couple of months, and the way he talked about them never sat right with me. But at the time, I was in a long-distance relationship and didn't pay enough attention to what it said about him. The bigger problem, which I couldn't ignore, was his alcohol abuse, and not long after that became obvious, he started asking me for money. My financial situation wasn't great, because due to a disability, I could only work limited hours and was barely covering rent and basic expenses, but AJ would call and ask for small amounts, $50 here, $100 there, always swearing he would pay me back in a week. Most of the time, he didn't, and he always had a reason why it was urgent and why he needed help right now. And at first I didn't mind helping a friend in trouble, but it quickly became a real problem when his constant borrowing started putting my own ability to pay rent at risk. Eventually, I had to start keeping notes on my phone to track what he owed me, and at the worst point his debt grew to around $2,000. On top of that, he relied on me heavily after losing his driver's license due to repeated drunk driving violations, and when he had a huge fight with his father and left home for a couple of months. I helped him survive until he eventually moved back in. During that time, he constantly complained about how terrible his father was, claiming the man didn't care if he lived or died, and exploded with anger for no reason, and I believed him, because I thought I was supporting a friend during a rough period. Only later did I realize how much of that story was exaggerated or completely made up to squeeze money, rides, and favors out of me. Eventually, we both left that tech job, AJ because he simply stopped showing up to work, and me a couple of months later for mental health reasons I won't get into here, but we stayed in contact mostly because he kept calling me. It wasn't completely one-sided, because occasionally he did things for me too, like organizing short trips into nature and paying for everything, which mattered to me more than I admitted at the time because I rarely went anywhere. At this point, you might think this is a story where I turn out to be the problem, but that changes quickly because this is where everything really started to fall apart. One day I got a call from a local detention center, and it turned out AJ had been arrested and used his one phone call to contact me. He was in jail for domestic violence against his girlfriend at the time, and, according to him, she started it, and he just hit harder, insisting he did nothing wrong. I didn't know what to believe, because I had never personally seen him act aggressively, and based on the little I knew about his ex, I already had a negative opinion of her, so I believed him. He spent a couple of months in jail, got out, and almost immediately contacted me again like nothing had happened. Not long after that, AJ met my closest friend, Belle, someone I had known longer than him, someone kind, introverted, deeply insecure, and one of the gentlest people I know. We had dated briefly in the past, but broke up simply because we weren't sexually compatible and instead became inseparable friends. When she and AJ started dating, I suddenly heard both sides of the story instead of just his, and less than a week later she called me in panic, asking me to pick her up from his house because she didn't feel safe and had no way to get home. I rushed there immediately, and she told me AJ had been drunk and what started as playful behavior crossed a line, became aggressive, and continued even after she told him to stop. It didn't turn into full sexual assault, but the way he treated consent terrified her. And to this day, I still feel guilty for not seeing the danger sooner, although the blame belongs entirely to him. When I confronted AJ, he immediately tried to turn it around and accused Belle of lying and manipulating me. But I shut that down instantly, because I knew her far too well to believe that. And at that moment, my friendship with AJ was effectively over. From then on, our relationship was purely transactional. I drove him to work, he paid for gas, and slowly repaid his debt, and over the next couple of months I managed to get about $1,000 back. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that I was helping him get better, but in reality I was still being used, something people later rightly criticized me for. The final collapse came one ordinary day when I asked him a simple question during a ride home. Nothing important, nothing confrontational, but his reaction was completely disproportionate, defensive, aggressive, and suspicious, and when I pressed him on it, he exploded into insults and accusations that had nothing to do with the question at all. We argued the entire ride, and shortly after I dropped him off, I got a message saying he had been arrested again. This time he had gotten into a violent fight with his father and hit him in the face, leading to police involvement and a restraining order keeping him away from the house. When I later spoke to his father, we initially argued too, because both of us believed lies AJ had told us about each other. But as we compared stories, anger turned into realization, and we understood how deeply AJ had manipulated everyone around him. His father explained things I had never known, including previous incidents of violence, lies about medical issues to get drugs from me, and how AJ used borrowed money primarily to buy alcohol behind his back, and suddenly everything made sense in the worst way possible. A few days later, AJ ended up in a homeless shelter and reached out to me again, and that's when I finally sent him a message telling him the truth, that I wasn't helping anymore, that his problems were his own, and that maybe facing the full consequences of his actions was the only way he would ever learn anything, if he learned at all. His response was nothing but rage and accusations about conspiracies against him, and after that, his number was disconnected and his father cut him off financially. Years later, I still occasionally cross paths with his father through work, and the last I heard, AJ is living on the streets in a nearby city. And while that's not a happy ending, it's an honest one, because some people don't change until everyone stops enabling them, and some never change at all. But one lesson is clear: if you treat the people willing to help you like tools, eventually you run out of hands willing to reach back.